All right, Kenny, thank you for being here, man.
Man, no problem. Anytime, man.
Yeah, how are you there?
Pretty good on this Sunday morning, evening, whatever
Yeah,
time
yeah,
it is. Pretty
yeah,
good though. Pretty
awesome.
good.
But if you don't mind, really, just quickly kind of tell people who Kenny the Chef is, the man behind, the brand.
Gotcha. So Kenny the Chef was created 31 now, so it was created probably about 15, 16 years ago when I burnt my kitchen down in
Man.
Florida. My dad was Navy. He was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida. We lived in a little town outside of that. And I decided to cook my brother some French fries.
Yeah.
And we walked away and started playing Tony Hawk. And then the whole kitchen went up in flames.
Oh, man.
So I would say that's when Kenny the Chef got started. Like ever since then, I was like, I have to learn how to cook. I can't be out here burning French fries and burning kitchens down for the rest of my life.
That's crazy.
So I started there, got more familiar with the kitchen a little after that. And the crazy part is my dad was a culinary specialist in the Navy. So he just cooked for like presidents and big name people. And you would think I would know how to cook. So after that incident, I started getting in the kitchen more, learning things, stuff like that. And then moved on and went to college for it. Got here to Huntsville, Alabama, went to college, went to JF Drake, got that situated, got that done. And then in 2014, I started doing cooking full time. I quit my full time job. It was like, hey, I'm going to pursue this thing all the way. Started catering, started doing weddings, private parties, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now I'm here.
Cool. And so your dad being in the Navy and stuff, so you were kind of engulfed in like food and cooking like all your life kind of deal.
Pretty much all my life. So my dad, like I said, was in the Navy. So at the end of his tours, he would have they would fly the kids out to like the last 3 days of his orders.
Yeah.
Whatever city he was closest to, they would fly outside and we would get to be on the boat for 3 days with him. So like I literally would watch him cook for hundreds of people on these Navy ships.
Yeah.
And it was just a crazy experience to witness as a kid. And I just look back on it like, that's crazy.
That's awesome. And especially because you'll see like documentaries of that, or just people who are cooking for like massive, like, just crowds and stuff, and just the process that they go to and all this stuff. And it's really about being organized and stuff. And it's crazy to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's really like if you really have to have your stuff down, like step 1, step 2, step 3. Like that is the biggest thing with being a chef and even catering is being organized. You can't go into an event in chaos or don't know what you're doing, what's next, what to do. Like you really have to have that all that stuff mapped out before you even get there. Like it's
so you said, when you were 14, you kind of burned your. Was this at like your home, or is this like
this was at the home we lived in? Like literally, I burnt. And people's like, "Oh, you just burnt the stove down." I burnt the stove, the cabinets above, the refrigerator. The only thing that wasn't burnt was our kitchen table that was in the kitchen.
Oh man, that's crazy. And so y'all went to play Tony Hawk. It started catching on fire. Did you try to you blow it out? You call 911 automatically? That's
so
crazy.
My older brother was actually back in his room sleep, and he woke up and started smelling smoke. So he grabbed the fire extinguisher and tried to put it out as best as possible. So he got the fire out, but it's still kind of, by the time he really contained it, it was too late.
That's crazy. And well, because my dad, when we were younger, he worked in restaurants all his life, so he knew how to cook and all this stuff. And growing up, my mom grew up with 3 boys. So my dad would always push us to the kitchen to help her. And my mom would always tell us, hey, you need to learn how to cook, all this stuff. And one thing that my dad always taught us was, if you have grease, don't splash water on it because it'll catch on fire, right?
Yes.
And there was a couple of times where he would work at, they would do open flames for show and stuff kind of thing. So they would always do that. And it was one of those things, grease. It was like a staple. Grease, you got to be careful with it. Keep an eye on it. But that's insane.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, I was speaking about the grease. It was an incident my mom had. So my mom can't cook at all.
Yeah.
She has, I'm not going to say she can't cook. Sorry, Mom. She can cook a few things, her staples. But she was going to make something. We didn't have a house yet because we had just moved to, it was a part of Virginia we just moved to. So we was at a Homewood suite. So they had the stove and everything in there. And she turned one of the eyes on to start boiling water. But instead she turned the eye that had the grease on that was on the back of the stove. Snap. And I was like, Mom, I smell something burning. She was like, nothing's on, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay. And then the grease started popping, and she went to throw it in the sink, and she ran the water. Yeah, and it literally splashed. Till this day, like her right hand still, it's missing skin and stuff like that. Like it's crazy.
Oh man,
but grease fires.
Grease is
no water on grease fires, people.
Yeah, for sure. And but so that happened, and in that situation, did your parents, how did they take it? Did they beat you? I know I would have got.
See, my dad, I honestly thought I was finna die that day. Because my dad ran up, he was at work, so he had to leave, and he came and he ran, and he just grabbed me. He was like, "You okay? Everything okay? It's okay. It's okay. It's just the kitchen." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good." I was a little scared, but I'm good. I'm like, "We're all out here now. We're all good." So I actually didn't really get in trouble. Yeah, per se. He was just more happy I was okay.
Everything it didn't it was worse. Yeah. So especially now, as you're a dad, I'm a dad. Yeah. When stuff like that happens, you can't get mad at the children for being children, and just happy that it didn't escalate to anything worse.
Exactly. You can't.
Yeah, but that's crazy. And so you said you went to school, did cooking full time kind of thing, and then caterings, and so you always had that love for food and just cooking.
Yeah, I've always had that love. That is my. I tell my wife that's my safe space. I go there to clear my mind. If I'm having a bad day, I literally would go into the kitchen and cook a huge meal and don't even eat it. I was just cooking it and just be in the fridge or something like that. That's a place I go just to relax, to ease my mind, to unwind and stuff like that. And my wife's a great cook. People don't know this, but my wife really throws down in the kitchen. But since I am a chef, she just okay, do your thing.
You do your thing. So. Yeah, that's crazy. And that's one thing that I've kind of got to learn as well, that the ability to cook a good meal is just something that, it just can clear your mind. Because I'll try to, just from memory, cook stuff that my mom cooked growing up. And it's not exactly how she cooked it, but it was it was pretty darn close. So it kind of brings you back to, those moments when we were in the kitchen with my mom. And the crazy thing is, so me and my brother, we have this running joke how a lot of Hispanics don't measure stuff when they, salt or pepper or whatever. Exactly. And it's oh, well, how much did mom used to pour? And then it's oh, just like a little handful or whatever. But it's crazy. And it really is. And especially now in 2020, how a lot of people see that, the ability to produce good food and then just the aesthetics of it, posting, and people, they get attracted to that. Yeah. The ability to do that. So when you did your first, when you put yourself out there to do your first catering, how was that experience for you? Were you nervous? Were you anxious? Or were you just confident in, your abilities?
See, I was more nervous. Yeah. I'm always hard on myself when it comes to cooking anyway. I'm always thinking something's not right. But I did an event for a local, she's a celebrity makeup artist now, Sylvia Smith. Love you. Hey, Sylvia. Still to this day, I still cook for her. But she was doing a makeup class for a group of women or whatever. And she was like, "Hey, I need you to cater." And I'm just like, "You want me to do what?" Yeah. She really pushed me to, she's one of the reasons why I cater. Yeah. Because she pushed me to do it. And I was so nervous. I'm just like, what if they don't like this? What if I do something wrong? What if I forget something? This and that. But at the end of the day, I did great according to them. And I'm still hard on myself even to this day about events and stuff like that, or private dinners or whatever. I'm just like, ooh, what if I forget something? What if they don't like it? What if they don't like what my food tastes like? Yeah. What to do? So it's still nerve wracking.
And have you ever had that adventure where, kind of something goes off the rails and you're having to adjust and pivot?
Yes. Not anything recent, but a couple years ago, I'm literally loading the car up and everything, my truck up, and I'm like, okay, I got this. I'm checking stuff off. I was like, ooh, I forgot the fruit tray that I made. So I ran to my refrigerator, got the fruit tray. I took one step into my garage and dropped it. Oh, the entire thing. I still have that picture. Crazy. Matter of fact, I printed that picture off and stuck it on my bulletin board at home. Just a friendly reminder, hey, you're going to mess up, but don't let it break you.
Yeah, that's crazy. So. And because with my dad, just cooking when we were younger, I was probably 12, 13. So he took us to a couple events where some of his friends asked him to help them cater and stuff. So we would go and just see the amount of trays and all this stuff. And it's hey, do this. So at that age, I kind of got a glimpse of all that it takes to be able to cater. Or he'll be like, hey, go pass plates out or all this stuff. And you know, because a lot of times people go, they sit down and they never realize all the work that it's put into, you know, having the event or, you know, the food and all that stuff.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work. It starts early morning, late nights. Like I have several nights where my wife would be like, all right, just let me know if you need me. I'm upstairs and I'm cooking or prepping until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm just like, and then still have to wake up at 9 or 8 to finish. So it's definitely a lot behind the process.
And it's crazy because I feel that for a lot of people, when they start doing things, a lot of it's just learning on the go as well.
It really is. It is.
Yeah.
You learn daily. Every event is different. Every situation is different. So of course you're going to learn something new at every time you do something.
Yeah. And so for you, do you have like a certain style that you love to cook, you know, or is there a specific type of food that you love to cook, or, you know, one dish that you're like, yo, I just love cooking that dish?
So my go-to when someone like asks for my, you know, my advice or whatever they got going on, my go-to is pasta. I love Italian food. Like raviolis, any type of fettuccine, anything like that. Like that's my go-to. Like everybody loves my like New Orleans style pasta. It's like a penne pasta with like chicken, sausage, peppers, and a little cream sauce. So that's my go-to. People love it.
I get you.
I'm just glad they love it.
And have you like just dug into like making your own pastas?
I actually have. A few times. Like my wife bought me a KitchenAid for Christmas a few years back, and I dabbled in it a lot. I never made my pasta for an event. But like more at home. I make it all
because it's so much work to it.
It really is. It really is. It's the kneading and it's a lot.
Because I would see, you know, people making pasta, but you never know the detail and all that stuff that goes into it. And Joe Rogan had this restaurant owner in like LA, and they're off Venice, and they make their own pasta from scratch, all of it. So they kind of explain the details of it. So then I went and looked at the restaurant, they kind of break down everything, and it's a lot of work. And if you don't do it right, then your pasta, you know, be doughy or whatever the situation.
The first time I made it, I didn't feed it through the pasta thing as many times as it said. So when I went to cut it and then dropped it in the water, it came out so thick. Like the noodles, that's crazy. It was horrible.
And when I was younger, one of my first serving jobs was at Macaroni Grill.
Okay.
And this was in San Diego. So out there, people are exposed to different type of food and types of, you know, definitely. Just the way people cook pasta. But you would always run into the people, because we would cook our pasta al dente, which is, you know, not all the way through.
Not all the way through,
you know?
That'll chew to it.
Yeah, and we would have people that's like, hey, this isn't cooked all the way through. And you're like, oh, you're explaining to them. And they're like, yeah, but it's not cooked all the way through. So it's always one of those things. And it's crazy because people love things differently. And, you know, not everyone's the same. And it's crazy, especially with food.
It's like the biggest thing that people are vegetables. Like me personally, I don't like smushy, soft vegetables. But every time I cater something, they're like, hey, make sure the vegetables are soft. Like, you're making me cook all the nutrients out of it. It's bush at this point.
And that's one of those things that my dad always taught us growing up. He's like, no, if you they're pretty much, you know, all the nutrients, all that stuff's out of them. Now they're just mushy. And it's crazy because there's stuff that a lot of people just don't know, I guess, about food. Because it's just, we don't educate ourselves in the ability to, you know, cook food well, or just like when I was working somewhere else, they had a pork chop, and they're like, oh yeah, just cook it medium rare. And I was like, but it's pork. And they're like, no, pork chops, you can cook medium, I think it was. And I don't even know how true that was, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna just roll with it. But yeah, it's one of those things that just people hear other people say, and they feel that it's true. Like, oh, I don't like, you know, crunchy broccoli or something like that. Yeah. And it's one of those things that you kind of see different people, what they like and stuff.
Yeah, every person's different. Everybody's gonna like something different. So.
And you as you know, as a chef, you know, what's one of your pet peeves that you know?
Oh man. Ooh. I would say my biggest pet peeve, and my wife does it all the time, is put salt or something on something before chasing it. Like, you don't know if it needs it. Why salt it down even more? And it's okay. So that's my biggest pet peeve. Taste your food first, people. Taste your food and then add what you need.
See,
afterwards.
And I'm gonna say I'm one of those people. Like, and my wife always says that you haven't even tasted it, but I'm always and it goes back to because my dad, he would teach us how to cook up pasta or different things that come together. And he's like, if you season your broccoli, then you season your sauce, then you season your meat. Once you bring all that together, all that salt, now you salted everything. And then at the end, you add more salt. So I always keep that in mind. It's like, oh, I didn't season, but I will season at the end. But I'm not a chef. It's just the way that I kind of just bring food together and stuff. But that's crazy. And so like now what are you up to? I've seen that you've done like private dinners and stuff.
Yeah, so like I've moved away from the catering side as much. I know like when I was doing it like really full time, that's what I was, that was my bread and butter. Like I have to cater to keep these lights on in the house. But now it's like I've transitioned to what I really wanted to do in the beginning, and that was to be a private chef. So like I moved into private dinners, small, intimate things. I'm trying not to do anything over 25 people now. So just to keep it small, intimate, so they can really get that full chef experience. I feel like when you cater, it's just like, hey, I'm making you a bunch of food. Here you go. Well, like when it's something intimate and small, like you actually get that full effect.
Yeah, and you can actually kind of get down to where people actually like, taste, the food that was cooked for them specifically. That's awesome. Yeah. And I don't know if you've heard of Chef Calvin. He's J-Lo and A-Rod's personal chef. Mm-hmm. And I've heard of him through another podcast, the Earn Your Leisure podcast. Okay. And he just talked about his story and how he ended up cooking for them. And he worked in restaurants like all his life. And you always had those restaurants that's like, no, we cook this way and all this stuff. And he's like, no, but like I know my style, I know my talent. Mm-hmm. And he was able to grow, a personal brand where people were going to restaurants for him and not the restaurants. So then, one of his buddies or somebody pushed him like, hey, why don't you, just do private events to where you sell a limited amount of tickets and people come taste your food. So he started doing that. And then J-Lo and A-Rod got his number and they started trying him out. So now they use him for like special events, Christmas, birthdays kind of thing. But he's really open about, his recipes, through Instagram and just his process. And he talked about how he loves that, the ability to just, cook for small groups of people, just really dive into whatever they're eating, and then just the ability to, bring all those flavors and kind of educate people as well, because you have that ability to do that. But it's crazy because he never thought of being, the personal chef for J-Lo or A-Rod. And last year when J-Lo did like the halftime at the Super Bowl, they flew him out to Miami, cooked for the family and all this stuff. And he did like on Instagram Live and stuff. So it's crazy because you see how as chefs, if you get stuck in the kitchen and, that can be that, and if that's not you, it can be depressing.
It can be. And I would say that's one thing I've, commend people with knowing what they want to do. Yeah. Because I knew from the jump, I never wanted to work for a chain restaurant. Yeah. That was never my thing. Everybody always asks me like, hey, why don't you work here? Why don't you work here? Because that's not my recipe. Yeah. Like once you go to a restaurant, they have set recipes. That's what they want you to do. That's what you want to follow. And that's fine for them.
And a set schedule as well. Because we talked about this a little, how, it's late nights, weekends, and all the family time, the ability to spend time with them kind of just out the window.
And that was another reason. I know when I first started this, I knew like I said, didn't want to be in a restaurant. And that was definitely one of the reasons, because I knew I was going to have kids in the future. And I have 3 now. And I couldn't imagine being in a restaurant at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, just getting off, not really seeing them. And that's...
And especially like working like holidays, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Easter, Mother's Day. Yeah, and that's one of those things that, when we found out, we were having a baby. That's when I was like, hey, I need to get out of the food industry because, you can make good money from it kind of thing, but it's not sustainable to have like a life work balance. And
it's really not. Hats off to those that can do that manage it, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you're able to do this and just have private dinners and all that stuff. Have you ever seen Chef, the movie?
So it's on my watch list. I haven't watched it yet, but I've never heard of it. Yeah.
And I loved it because it kind of for when I was younger, I was like maybe 17, 18, and my uncles were chefs and they got paid well, worked for restaurants. And at the time I was about to graduate high school and everyone's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I didn't really know, but I enjoyed cooking a little. So they were like, hey, why don't you try it out? Go to culinary school and all this stuff. But then my dad kind of gave me the rundown. It's like, hey, it's late nights, all this stuff. Sometimes, you hit, a paywall, and then that's as much as you're ever going to make. And you're always going to work for someone, all this stuff. And so I was like, oh, maybe chefs can't be successful or make good money. But now it's kind of shifted because it can, you can do your caterings, you can do private events, you can do private dinners. So it definitely opens up the door for you to, if you love cooking, have the ability to do other things and not just be tied on to a restaurant and make that your only source of income.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's crazy. So during, Corona on the season, like, time, have you been able to do any private dinners, stuff like that?
And see, during this whole pandemic, that was my biggest thing. I was just like, am I still really going to be doing dinners? And I've picked up more during the pandemic than actually during the regular non-pandemic season. I guess people are thinking like, oh, why go to a restaurant or this and that when I can hire a chef to come into my home and come and cook. So I've literally been nonstop busy the last 5-6 months.
That's awesome.
Each weekend. It's been crazy. I would say this month I took a break. I said no to a lot of people this month because I'm just like, I need a break.
Especially because you work a full-time job as well.
Exactly.
And how do you try to look for that balance with your family and all this other stuff? How do you kind of handle that?
Okay, so my family, I got my regular 9 to 5, so I get a lot of time after, like, Monday through Friday is really after 5 o'clock. It's my family time. Like, I get to help my daughter with her homework, play with my boys and stuff like that. And then I don't do anything on Sunday after 3 unless it's like a really, really like big payday for me.
I got you.
So Sundays is really like after 3 is like I'll do a brunch at like 11 or 12, and then but like anything after 3 I won't take unless it's like, hey, we're gonna pay you like for real. So I try to keep late Sundays or mainly the family day. We go to my dad's house every Sunday, so we do family dinner there, and then Monday through Friday is a good mix of the family. Like I get everything like that. And then like date night on Friday night with my wife, and Saturday is really for my clients. That's when I do a lot of private dinners or meal prepping or whatever the case is for people.
That's awesome. And so for like private dinners and stuff, how do you go about that? Do you, when people reach out to you like, hey, I'm interested in this, how do y'all set a menu? Do y'all both kind of talk like what kind of menu they're looking for, the experience, all this stuff? Or?
Yeah, so the process is I'll ask them like, hey, do you have a menu in mind? Because like my private dinners, it's automatically going to be a 3-course meal. That's just the starter. Like it can go up to 4 or 5, however fancy you want to get. So, and then if they don't have a menu in mind, I have like this sample menu that have 8 or 9 different menus. And then I tell them they can mix and match. Like if you see an entree at menu 1, but you want the sides of menu 3.
I got you.
You can do that. So like if they don't have an idea, I pretty much help them out. Like, hey, here's a sheet of 9 or 10 menus for you to pick through to see what you like, what you don't like, and we'll go from there.
That's awesome. And you said you picked up during the pandemic for private dinners, and I feel that when people see that they have that option, that there is people offering that, a lot of people will gravitate towards that a little bit more as well, just because date nights, Fridays and Saturdays, you can go out to eat and all this stuff, but restaurants are packed,
It's crazy packed. And there's no social distancing. It's not happening.
Yeah. And especially because, you'll go in there, you have a 30-minute wait, and then you get there and then your server already has like 6 tables. And sometimes, the experience isn't there. So I can see why, people are looking for that, private dinner.
It's definitely there because like just a couple weeks ago, took the wife to Nashville just to celebrate her birthday, and we had an hour and a half wait for dinner. I'm just like, an hour and a half? Like, what's really going on? Like you said, the waiter had like 7 tables still, and I'm just like, oh man, we're gonna be sitting here forever. So you lose that experience like a little bit when you have to wait that long. So you definitely get it when you hire a private chef to come home. Like, you're gonna pay a little more, but you paying for the experience and the comfort of being in your own home. So.
Especially, it can be definitely a great option for like anniversaries and birthdays and stuff like that, because it's like, yo, I was able to get you a private chef to whip up, a meal for us, kind of thing.
Yeah, I had a lady reach out last month and it was her husband's birthday. It was like, hey, he follows you on Instagram and he just mentioned your name months ago, and I just kept it in my mind waiting for his birthday. I thought it was the sweetest thing she did. She had got him a hotel, the Homewood Suites downtown, right up by the Publix and stuff here. And they had a little small kitchen in there, so I was able to get in there and make it work, and they absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. That's crazy. And so now, with your private dinners and stuff, what would you think, your goal for that is, or is it something that you plan to, grow to make it full time, or is it something that you like the balance that you have right now, or how do you want to go up?
So as of right now, I do like the balance I have. Like, I love my 9 to 5. I don't want people to think like all 9 to 5s are bad. I love my 9 to 5. It's a good job, good people. I work with some pretty cool people, but eventually I do want to just work for myself. So I tell everybody all the time, I'm retiring at 40. And my version of retiring at 40 is not working for anybody. So eventually I do want to get to the point of where I have not necessarily a restaurant, but a nice space that has a kitchen where I can do private dinners during the week. Like, hey, it's a group of people like, hey, I want to get my girlfriends together. We want to do a private dinner. I got the space for you. Like, I don't want to have to find the space and do it. So my ultimate goal for that is to finally get that space and be able to do that full time, and then let my 9 to 5 go.
Awesome. especially because, like girls, or just people in general, once they have that option, definitely, it's like, hey, it's my birthday, and some people like to kind of have flexes like that. So I was like, yo, we had a personal chef, or my wife's birthday,
right? I got a brunch I got to do, so let's hire you for. So I'm
that's awesome. And you said how you said how you love your 9 to 5 right now, and it's great because sometimes, people love that balance, to be able to have that 9 to 5, but then something that they're proud of as well. And that's something that, I guess, nowadays I want to push people to kind of find that thing that they're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be, something that they do full time, but that's something, they knock out on the weekends or, after work, but that they're proud of, and that way their kids are like, hey, my dad had a 9 to 5. But, he had this thing that he was proud of. He had this thing that he called his own. Mm-hmm. And just the ability to, to have a fulfilled life, if you would say.
I definitely agree. And also just a tidbit. I feel like once you find that passion, you don't always have to operate in it full time. Like, I don't want people to think they have to, because that's society today is like, hey, own your own stuff, do this. Everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur. I honestly feel that way. So, but I don't let people force you to do
that. And just to be able to do something, or whatever it is, because a lot of times I've worked with different people who didn't like their job, mm-hmm. but they enjoyed doing other stuff. And I was like, why don't you, try to do it as a little side hustle, or just, be open about it. And they just didn't want to take that next step. And I feel that a lot of times, it's just the ability to, want to take the next step, to mm-hmm. kind of have that, little side hustle, even if it's not making you money, but it's, it's something that you're proud of. And it just kind of balances out, your ability that, my job is not where I wanted to be, but, I have this other thing that just kind of.
Now, I would say in that situation, yes, leave, jump out the boat.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, this one guy said, if you don't know what you want to do, find something that you hate because you want to, get out of there. But it's awesome that, you've been able to do this, and finding good balance, because with a family it's definitely hard, because you have 3 kids, you said.
3 kids.
And I have 1, and I get home from work and she's like, hey, Dad, you want to play? She's 2, so she's she's all over the place. Mm-hmm. And my wife's like, hey, she needs a little brother, a little sister. And I'm like, hey, let me get her under control first.
Right.
Yeah. But it's crazy because, sometimes I feel that the fear of, throwing that on top of your, all this other stuff can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it definitely can be overwhelming. That's why you definitely have to have that work-life balance. You have to be able to, once you step in the house, let work be work. Yeah. And now you're at home. So focus on home stuff. That's my biggest advice I give everybody. Like, well, how you do it? Like, I let work be work and I let home be home. Yeah. So like once I'm done with work, I'm not bringing it back up at home. Unless my wife asks me like, how your day went?
Yeah.
I explain. But outside of that, like I don't do work at home. Like, so.
Yeah. And it's crazy because for me, like for the longest I had to, find that time or it's like, hey, when do I have time to work on these other things that I want to and not take time away from the family. And for me, like I had to get up earlier before I went to my 9 to 5 kind of thing, and it's worked out great for me because I work, I usually get up at around 4ish. And I kind of just work on other stuff and then, wake up with the family, go to work. And then when I come back, it's like, hey, now it's just time for y'all because I already worked on my stuff in the morning. But yeah, I feel that just finding that balance is essential to whatever, people want to pursue as well. Yeah,
definitely.
But we talked about how, you're diving into photography and stuff. Yeah. But how did that go about?
So it went well because on, my Instagram page, I've did all my food photography. That's all me. It started with my phone, and then I invested into a cheap little Canon camera. And then I was like, all right, if I'm really going to do this, let me actually get some gear that's actually going to get me to where I want it. So I purchased my first real camera, I'd say, probably a couple years back. And I was just like, okay, cool. And then I worked with my friend at my 9 to 5 was like, hey, you got all this camera gear. Why aren't you taking photos of people? And I'm just like, I never really thought about, doing portraits and stuff like doing pictures for people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but deep down, I was like, I've always had a passion. Like I did my senior class book. Like I took the pictures for that. So it's like, I always had a passion for photography. I just really didn't tap into it until I had that conversation with a friend, and I was like, okay, let's really do this. So now I'm a portrait photographer, I guess you can say. I take portraits. I got my food stuff. I've done stuff for headshots for clients and all kind of stuff. So
that's crazy. And is there anyone that you follow, like on Instagram or YouTube, that you're like, hey, I like what he's doing?
My favorite person right now is Pete McKinnon.
I was hoping you would say that.
I don't know if I ever will get to meet this guy, but I just want to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, see, and because we talked about how I dove into photography as well, just because I feel that it's one of the skills that you can always use.
Oh yeah.
Whether you want to do it full time or just the ability to like, hey, we're gonna take family pictures, and I have the ability to edit and all this stuff.
Exactly.
And now you're saving yourself $200 paying someone else, and it's like, hey, I can invest it in the family, go out to dinner or Christmas or whatever. But I always saw it that way. It's a tool that, if you're trying to grow your personal brand, your business, it's a tool that, it's good to learn. But I've always followed Peter McKinnon and just the knowledge that he drops in.
It's ridiculous. Like he knows so much about it, and he'll tell you like he's still learning daily, but like the information he gives out is the best. Like how he's a natural teacher. I don't know if he knows this, but he's like a natural teacher. Like how he explains stuff, how he breaks stuff down. It just comes out so easy.
And he keeps you engaged too. That's what I love. Because I've dove, when I was first diving into it, I would look at a couple of different people, and some of them were just boring. There's like do this, do this, do this, and it's like, oh, you lost me at
like you lost me at that first slider right there.
And it's crazy because you kind of see your progression as well, how you're doing and all this stuff, and you learn about different your color correction and all this stuff, and then you go back to like your first stuff that you thought was good, and you're like, oh, this stuff was definitely
that's the exact reason why like I had a mentor for like my food side a while back, and I was going through and deleting all the stuff on my Instagram. I'm like, I need to delete all this old stuff. And she told me, she was like, no, stop. She was like, don't delete it. People need to see like where you started to how you are now. So shout out to her. For that.
I feel that I kind of did that the same way, like back like with my Instagram back when, I was probably taking pictures with like an old like razor or something, and I was like, no, I need to delete them or just, different, I thought pictures that I thought were good and I was deleting them, but I was like, no, it's like, hey, my ability has, or, my progression, is on my Instagram and stuff, and just learning that. But that's awesome. And you're kind of diving into videography as well.
Yeah, I'm working on a documentary now for a good friend of mine. He's a real sports basketball type, football type guy, baseball, like he loves it all, but it's pretty much a documentary about his life. Like we have this church league here in town, and he was the MVP of the church league and all this stuff like that. So we're just doing a documentary about his life. Like last weekend we actually went to his hometown and like did some interviews with his mom and his old teammates and old friends and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool tying that all together. Like I think it's pretty awesome.
And how did that go about? Were you like, did you ask him, to do a documentary, or?
So he was actually already in the midst of doing the documentary, and the person who was doing his documentary kind of was like a little flaky. Oh, okay. So he was like, man, it's a good friend of mine. It's like I called him my little brother. So he was just like, hey, if you ever tap into video, man, we can finish this documentary. And I'm just like, I mean, I can try. Like I was like, I ain't got no problem with doing it. So we did like a snippet of one little episode, and he was like, man, I love it. Like, and I was just like, oh, you love this? I was like, I was just playing around. So, and then I started investing in stuff. I got a gimbal for stable images and all this stuff like that. So it's rocking.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And because Peter McKinnon, he's big on photography, and like his videos are really good. But have you heard of Sam Colder?
No,
I'm gonna tag you on some of his stuff, but Peter McKinnon will be like, like he's the photography guy. He does video as well, but Peter McKinnon, he'll say he's more of a photography guy. But this Sam Colder guy, his videos, you see him and you're like, how in the world? And now that's all that he does. And he's done like stuff for like big brands, Nike, Gymshark, just because his style, and you'll see his videos and it's just his style. But you see stuff like that and you're like, how is my stuff ever going to look like that?
And it's all about learning and teaching yourself do things, like never become stagnant or where you had always come in with the mindset of I can always learn this. So
especially because we talked about it, how YouTube, a lot of people, it's like, oh, I don't know where to start.
Exactly.
We have the ability, to learn anything, basically.
Anything.
Because of YouTube. And it's crazy because, Eric Thomas will say how a lot of people, they upgrade their phones, but they never upgrade their lives.
Oh, man.
And I'm always thinking like how, some people are like, oh yeah, I just bought the new iPhone, $1,600. And I'm like, just to scroll through Facebook and Instagram. Like,
that's it.
Yeah. But it's crazy and it's awesome. And do you feel that, people are going to be able to see this documentary, or is it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, it's definitely, he's starting up a YouTube page and everything like that. So, and then that's the guy we want to eventually start our podcast with. So they're
that's awesome.
It's definitely coming to light.
Well, I hope that y'all do, because I guess people are going away from just mainstream media as the sense of like radio and television and all this stuff. And if you do it well, a sport podcast can be really
that's the main goal. Like it's
especially like because we talked how you're a Saints fan and I'm a Saints fan.
Who that?
And it's at first when I was they were talking about football, if it was gonna come back or not, I was like, come on, we kind of need this. And after the season started, the Saints win the first one and we're like, all right, we're looking good. We're looking good. And then we lose the next two. And I'm like, yo,
what's really going on?
And even, the last game with the Lions, they were 14-0 within the last 5 minutes or something. And I told my wife, like, yeah, we're done. We're losing. And it's crazy because it's like I told you, me and my brother's like, oh, we're Saints fans. We're used to being heartbroken. But yeah, I hope that y'all do decide to start the sports podcast and just be able to share your knowledge and your passion for sports as well. And and because I feel that sports is one thing that just helps people escape from all this other stuff.
It really does. It definitely does.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so where can people find your photography page? Is it linked to your Kennythechef? Because I'll have links to all that stuff.
Okay, so they can follow me on Instagram. It's at Kenny Ray Shoots. That's all. They get all my photography stuff there. I try to post daily. I've been slacking a little bit these last few days, but Yeah, that's at Kennythechef.
Because it's also like it can, the ability to run multiple Instagrams can be like a job as well.
It really can. And I posed a question before I even opened up my Kennythechef page. I was like, should I just do one? But then it's like, what do I change my name to? Because if I say Kennythechef, they're gonna expect all food. So I just decided to do two.
And because I have like my personal Instagram, which I'm also trying to grow as a personal brand as well. But then I was like, oh, I'll have an Instagram for the podcast. But then just going back and forth and interacting and all this stuff. And I'm like, maybe I should have just kept it one. But one of my buddies like, no, just keep them separately, because as you expand all this stuff, you don't want to just flood your personal Instagram with just all that content.
Exactly.
But it's awesome. And well, Kenny, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, your passion. But where you're at now, is this a place that you would have thought you were gonna be, when you were younger? Do you have a different vision for yourself?
Man, when I was younger, I had no clue I would be in the position I am today. Married, 3 kids, chef, still 9 to 5. Like, I wanted to be a basketball coach when I was a little kid. I was like, I would have never dreamed of actually being a chef, cooking for people and stuff like that. So it's definitely an honor to do to cook for people. I would never take it for granted for somebody to call me like, hey, I want you to cook for me. Like, it just does something for me like that. It's good.
And especially because it's definitely a responsibility.
It definitely is. It definitely is a responsibility, because people are trusting you to feed them.
To just leave an experience that they're proud of, and that's awesome. That's crazy. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. And I definitely want to keep networking with awesome people, because I love what you're doing. To definitely keep bringing you on and just inspiring different people to kind of find that thing that they want to do, and just kind of work at it and just keep progressing as well. Because I feel that especially once you have a family, Joe Rogan says how a lot of people just get trapped, and they feel that they're trapped because you got family and all these responsibilities, and then now it's our job to kind of get untrapped and find that thing that makes us happy, find that thing that gives us a sense of fulfillment and joy, and the way to be able to inspire people, inspire our kids as well. But cool. Thank you for doing this.
Not a problem. Appreciate it.
I'll keep. I look forward to keep having you on. In the future as well. And keep networking on. But awesome. Thank you for doing this.
Man, no problem, man.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing.
No problem. No
And
problem.
I definitely, want to keep networking with awesome people because, I love what you're doing.
Yeah,
To definitely keep bringing you on and just inspiring different people to, kind of, find that thing that they want to do and just kind of work at it and just keep progressing as
oh,
well.
yeah, man. I
Because I
appreciate
feel
it.
that, especially once you have a family, Joe Rogan says how a lot people just get trapped
Mhm.
and they feel that they're trapped because you got family and all these responsibilities, and then now it's our job to kind of get untrapped and find that thing that makes us happy, find that thing that gives us a sense of fulfillment, joy, and the way to be able to inspire people, inspire our kids as well.
Exactly.
But yeah.